All right, let's see. This should be a fun little experiment. What are the total carbs I'm consuming on this OMAD diet? So got 50 right there, 75, 12, carry the 2. It can't be right. Let me do this again. Okay, so add that, the beans, the apple, watermelon, subtract the dietary fiber. We're talking net carbs here. Whoa. Can you check this math? You don't have to give me an attitude, man. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. This week, I want to discuss some pretty interesting findings from my most recent OMAD experiment. And I guess I should say ongoing experiment here, because we're still in the midst of it. And this interesting fact is the fact that I'm finding myself in somewhat of a pseudo keto state while consuming a carb-heavy, plant-based diet. Now, this wasn't part of the plan from the beginning or my original intentions when moving to OMAD. Originally, I was looking for a safe and effective way to transition off of my 6-month alternate day fasting rendezvous, seeing how I can optimize and tune, one, my sleep, which was already pretty good to start with, and two, start to gain a little more muscle and lean out a little bit. Those were the original intentions. But we know whenever you're trying out new things, you gotta leave room for, I guess, not disappointment, the opposite, pleasant surprises. Gotta think positively. So the OMAD protocol, which I've been following now for the past 3 months, wow, time flies when you're fasting. I think I'm gonna trademark that. Don't try, it's already done by the time this video is published. Done, sorry. What were we talking about again? Oh. Essentially, I've been following a 22-2 time-restricted feeding strategy with a full day fast every single Monday. Because the only way you can make everyone's favorite day of the week even better is by not eating, right? Right. So the thing that's actually special about this OMAD strategy is that it is a ETRF focused strategy, and ETRF stands for early time-restricted feeding, which there is a lot of emerging science around suggesting that organisms who aren't nocturnal, daywalkers, actually metabolize their meals better and run more efficiently when the meals are earlier rather than later. Still emerging science, but very, very interesting, and that's kind of the basis for why I do an ETRF OMAD. So my eating window is between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., and I call it kind of a grazing window, but essentially get one big meal in during that time. And it's been pretty successful in achieving the goals that I outlined before. I actually did see an improvement in some already pretty good sleep, according to the Ring of Aura. And I did stabilize my weight a lot more from ADF. If you remember from my ADF video, I was seeing about 8-pound weight swings every 2 days because I was fasting for literally 46 hours and then eating quite a bit every other day. So I'd see like an 8-pound weight swing. Now, the ETRF OMAD, plant-based OMAD, I'm seeing, about a range of 3 pounds, which I'm very comfortable with. I'm leaning out, I'm building muscle. I'm liking it a lot. But the interesting thing here, and the real reason that we're talking right now, and this video is being made, is the interesting finding that I found. Good English. Was what I stated before around being in this steady state of low-dose ketosis, which for the amount of carbs that I'm consuming seems almost impossible and, crazy to think. And then when you start to break it down, which we'll do a little later in this video, kind of makes sense. So first, let's quickly touch on what the hell ketosis is and why it could potentially be beneficial if done right. And just to preface this, it's all going to be at a high level. I'm not a keto guru, but I know my way around an avocado. Okay? Okay. So ketosis is the biological state in which the organism leverages the byproducts of fat breakdown or fat oxidation as a source of energy. And these byproducts are called ketones. They have more granular names, but the vast majority of people know them as ketones. And long story short, ketones are not the body's preferred source of energy. That title would be held by glucose, or the byproduct of the breakdown of carbohydrates. But when glucose is scarce, say if you were fasting, and if you run out of your glucose reserves as the form of glycogen in skeletal muscle and the liver, your body needs to find an energy source quick, or face imminent demise. Thus, it falls back into this biologically life-saving and evolutionary critical process of turning stored fat into energy. And that, my friends, is ketosis. Now, if we bring this to the 21st century, we talk about the keto diet, which is a popular high-fat, low-carb diet that's circulating for weight loss right now. And in this protocol, many people eat. They're not fasting, but they're in a state of nutritional ketosis, which typically checks in somewhere between the range of 0.5 and 4 millimoles per liter of ketones in your blood serum. Meaning, like I said before, the people who follow a keto diet typically eat a high-fat, low-carb, moderate protein diet that gets them somewhere in that ketone sweet spot. Make sense? Good. Now the question becomes, is being in this ketogenic state actually good for you? And the short-term evidence out there, because we don't have long-term evidence or studies really on this, but the short term shows that it could be helpful and therapeutic for a number of different conditions. Now, the primary reason that it's turned to is for weight loss and fat burn. But I would argue that's the case for, 99% of people who go on diets. Weight loss, fat burn, two hot ticket items, everything else, which really isn't the right mindset to have going into it, and really is the reason that a lot of these diets end up failing for people. But that's a discussion for later times. But keto has actually shown some benefits with improving the pathology of some of the diseases that make up the modern day burden of metabolic syndrome, diabetes, heart disease, and certain types of cancers when compared to the standard Western diet, which we all know is shit. I mean, actually eating feces of healthy people might actually be healthier than eating the standard Western, I don't want to go there, but probably. See what happens? See if this makes the cut. Being in ketosis has also shown promise with lowering inflammation, improving cognitive performance or focus, which I personally have noticed. As a consolation prize, it is actually a cleaner fuel than glucose itself. And what I mean by cleaner fuel is it actually takes less chemical reactions to get into a usable energy form as opposed to carbohydrates. There's more into breaking down a carbohydrate than there is to breaking down a fat store or breaking down fats from your diet, which is good and adds up over time. Again, there hasn't been any long-term studies here, so we really don't know any potential real negative effects, which is dangerous, but very interesting. Being in ketosis also means that you've got your body into a state of metabolic flexibility, being able to quickly switch over to leveraging fat as energy as opposed to relying on carbohydrates and glucose all the time. Now, years and years of living a Western lifestyle and having food on demand basically has put a lot of us into a state where switching over energy sources or energy substrate types from carbohydrates to fat could be a pretty painstaking process. I'm sure you've heard of the keto flu. That's what happens. You become mentally and physically fatigued for a couple of days until your body can properly adjust. It can do it, it's just the longer you go without doing it, the harder it is. But as a rule of thumb, the more metabolically flexible you are, the more functional you'll be as an organism, being able to withstand a lot more environmental challenges and stresses that we don't seem to face that much anymore. But still, it's a good thing to have in your back pocket. Just saying. Now, with that little keto refresh under our belts, let's get to what I'm seeing in this carb-heavy OMAD protocol. By the way, when I'm talking carb-heavy, I'm talking somewhere in between 250 and 400 grams of carbs a day, which if you're following keto, you're not supposed to go over 30 net carbs. Put a little perspective there. And I haven't counted, it's just a guesstimate, it's probably actually more, but either way. Based on testing over the last couple of weeks, I found that my ketone levels at 5:30 in the morning, about 18 and a half hours after my last meal, are somewhere in the range of 0.4 and 1 millimole per liter. And then we take a look at hour 22 of the fast, right before I break the fast. And this, you gotta keep in mind, is after some caffeine and after a workout in the morning. We're at around 0.5 to 1 millimoles per liter. And then more recently, I've been looking at what the hell my ketone levels were before I went to bed. And I'm a pretty early sleeper. So at about 8:30 p.m., about 7.5 hours after my last meal, ketones were checking in pretty low, but still there, around 0.2 to 0.4 millimoles per liter. And the final metric I'll throw at you after about 46 hours of fasting, and this is fasting from my Sunday meal ending at 1 p.m. to Tuesday at 11, that Monday fast, I'm at about 1.5 millimoles per liter from a blood serum ketone level, which means I'm ramping up, relatively quickly there. All this is cool, but I think what's even cooler here is what potentially is happening. So let's explore. If I had to guess here, I'd say that combining my active lifestyle, my intense training protocol, my muscle composition, my consistent sleep habits, and already established metabolic flexibility with this early OMAD eating strategy, that I found myself in this interesting balance. The body is always looking to find homeostasis, aka balance, where I consistently on a daily basis deplete most of my glycogen stores, or stored glucose, with some exercise in the evening and some intense training first thing in the morning. These depleted glycogen stores leave my muscles as literal glucose vacuums when it gets reintroduced at the beginning of my feeding window at 11 a.m. And just for reference, the human body can store anywhere between 400 and 500 grams of glucose as glycogen, and that's highly dependent on the amount of skeletal muscle that one has as well. The more skeletal muscle, the more muscle mass, the more glucose you can store as glycogen. And these glycogen stores are really only used during intense exercise, when the body needs to produce energy where there is a lack of oxygen. This is called anaerobic respiration. Think HIIT training. So my complex carb heavy meals, which is actually drastically decreased if you're only counting net carbs, or the carbs that are not dietary fiber and actually get absorbed. My hypothesis is the majority of the carbohydrates that I consume during my one meal a day is going to replenishing the glycogen stores in both my skeletal muscle and my liver, leaving the excess circulating carbohydrates to a minimum shortly after my meal. And by 8 or 9 p.m. that night, again about 7.5 hours after finishing my last meal, rise ketones, rise. Ketones begin to go up again. That's where my head's at. That's what I'm thinking. Quite interesting, if you ask me. And that's if my hypothesis is actually correct. It's actually probably more interesting if the hypothesis is wrong. It's kind of like running your gas tank to E each and every day, and then before you refuel, you run on solar for a little bit. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be running on solar for a bad example. I got to work on my analogies. Now, I want you to keep in mind here, I've been doing this for a while. I've been following time-restricted feeding for the last 5 years. I've been following early time-restricted feeding for almost the last 3 years. I've spent months in plant-based nutritional ketosis, as well as 6 months of alternate day or every other day eating / fasting. So there's a high likelihood that I've trained and conditioned my body to react in this very specific way to this very specific protocol that's being thrown at it. Do I think you would experience the same metabolic state if you tried out a ETRF OMAD protocol? I really can't tell you because I really don't know. There are a lot of factors at play here. And we all know what you eat is just as important as when and how much. everyone is different. Everyone reacts to different scenarios and different protocols in a unique way. And that's why you need to invest in learning more and more about you and your body. And hopefully this channel helps you. This video was really only focused on highlighting something cool that I noticed when following this protocol. Hopefully showing a little glimpse into how awesome and adaptive the human body really is. And let me be clear, I am 100% not advocating that this is the optimal way to eat. I'm just simply sharing an experience, hoping that you could find some useful tidbits of information that you can apply to your own wellness journey, wherever you may be at. I felt the head nod with hat shake was appropriate there. I don't know. Not at a baseball game, not pitching. I don't know. So let me know what you've experienced and what you've tried out when it comes to fasting in the comments below. In the meantime, keep on investing in you.